Alright friends, this should be a pretty quick demo on how to flatten your image. So this is kind of what you would do after you edit your image, you work it up, you get it to the place where it looks pretty good to you, right? And you're ready to save it, okay? So remember, we want to save our images in two different formats, a high-res format and a low-res format. The high-res format is not resizing it, okay? We want to keep it full, as large as it can be, right? And we want to be able to maintain the information of the layers. We don't want to flatten our image in the high res. We want this information to still be accessible. So I'm going to save the high res version of this photo. So I'm just going to, no resizing, no flattening, none of that. I'm just going to go File, Save As, and I'm going to say Mexico Cave. That's just what this photo is. I'm going to go Option 8, R1. That just means revision 1. That tells me this is the, that's just kind of the naming convention I use in my own practice. You guys can come up with whatever you want. You can call it HR, high res. You could do whatever, right? R1 just means that this is a revision. It tells me that I can, it's the full size one that I can go and work on later. I want to save this as a TIFF. We save our high res images as TIFFs. I'm going to save it on the desktop. That's totally fine. I'm just going to hit save and OK. It says including layers will increase file size. So every layer you have actually comes close to doubling the file size. So right, it's just telling you that because you're going to fill up your storage faster if you're saving unflattened images. But we want to save unflattened images because we want to be able to go back in and change these settings later. So I'm going to hit OK. And down here it's saved. Okay, now if I close this, let me try to find it. My desktop is a mess right now. Here it is right there. So let me actually go into Photoshop again. I'm just going to close this file, right? So I got rid of it, close Photoshop. Now if I want to work on this photo again, I could take the high-res version and bring it into Photoshop, and boom, there it is. I can go and edit any of these layers that I want. I go to my luminosity curve and change any of the edits on it, right? Say I want to brighten it up a little bit. Perfect. So that high-res version, it always saves that. So now that I made a change, right, I changed that luminosity curve. If I like this, I'd have to go File, Save, and it'll just save it as Mexico Cave.R1 TIFF. That looks good to me. But remember, and these are the files that you're going to print from. The high-res versions are what you're going to print from, and you're going to want to be able to have access to your layers. The ones that you're going to be turning in, you want to turn in low-res versions. You don't want there to be all this information of these layers. This thing is done. And remember, you always want to do it in the sequence of save it as a high-res version first, because you want it's as big as it can be, and then you cut it down and save it as a separate file, so then you have two versions of it, a high-res version, a low-res version. So now I'm going to make this a low-res image. So remember, low-res image, we want to flatten it. We don't want all of this. It's done. So let's go Layer, Flatten Image, and it's going to say Discard Hidden Layers, question mark. The hidden layer is the threshold that we have turned off. And yep, we want to discard that. So just hit OK. And what Photoshop does is it takes the adjustment of those layers and just compresses it all down into the background. So you don't get, it keeps that information, right? It keeps those changes, but it just compresses it down into the background. Okay, so now I'm going to save it just how we do for our assignments. I'm going to go Image, Image Size. Remember, I've asked you to turn in your images as JPEGs. With a screen resolution. So a screen resolution is 72 pixels per inch. A screen can only show you 72 pixels per inch. So it's funny, sometimes I had actually a curator at a gallery ask me, I submitted work and he was like, hey, can you send me higher, I want to see like the detail in this photo and on our website. So can you send me like I don't remember what he asked for, like 3,000 pixels per inch resolution? And it's funny because you can put whatever number you want in here, right? You could put in 8,000 and whatever, right? A screen can only show you 72 pixels per inch. It's the limitation of the actual screen, the thing sitting in front of you, right? So if you put, it'll let you put whatever number you want in there. That doesn't mean that it's going to actually show you anything more, right? Its limitations is 72. So that makes the file smaller, right? Physically smaller, but it also makes it so it matches up with the resolution of a screen. Okay, and then I've asked you to go to 2500 pixels on the longest edge, so 2500 pixels. You always want to make sure the width and the height are connected, right, with this lock, because if you're not doing that, let's just unclick that, switch this back to 72, 2500. It stretched my image all weird. Let me see if I can see how it stretched the image, because when this lock is on, it's changing the width and the height together, okay? And the other thing, I know I've covered this before, is you always, always, always have to change resolution before you change the physical size. And I'll show you actually why you have to do that, right? So right there, that's great. That's how you're going to turn in your images. 72 pixels per inch at a width of 2500 pixels on the longest edge. So my image was 78.9 megs, and now it's 23.8. It's a lot smaller. So let me just actually cancel out of this, and let's go image size. I'm going to show you what happens if you don't change resolution first. So I'm going to say, okay, Buzzy wants me to turn it in at 2500 pixels on the longest edge. Perfect. Oh yeah, and the resolution is supposed to be 72. So now I'm going to type in 72, and look what just happened to width. So it's going to change the physical size based on the resolution, and now you have this little tiny, 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 tiny photo that if I was to open this up when I grade your work, it's going to look like a pixelated mess. So always, always, always make sure to change the resolution before the physical size. So I'll show you the correct way. Image size. We're going to go 72 pixels per inch. Resolution, or I'm sorry, a size of 2500 pixels on the longest edge, making sure the lock is on. I'm going to hit OK. And now I'm going to save it to turn in. So I'm going to go File, say as A1 underscore Buzzy underscore 05, whatever, right? And remember, a low res, we don't want a TIFF, because a TIFF is a non-compressed file. We want to use a JPEG, which is a compressed file. So I'm going to also save this onto the desktop. Save. Quality 12 is totally perfect. All right, so now let me close out of this. And now we have the full res version and the low res version right here. This is the one you're going to turn in, put on a website, all that stuff. This is the one you're going to make giant prints from. You might want to make a folder, file, new folder, and you could call it whatever, 143. Double click into that thing, and in here you could go File, New Folder, High Res, and you could go File. Let's click out of there. So next to it, you could go File, New Folder, Low Res, and then you could always just go and drag the low res into the low res and the high res into the high res. So that's one way how you, oh, sorry, I didn't put that in the folder. That's funny. That's one way you can organize your images. That's totally up to you. And you could name them the same thing, right? This one I called Mexico Cave.R1. I could call this one Mexico Cave Web. Then I would know that this is the low res one. It's up to you how you do that. So that is how you flatten your images, and just a recap of how you resize them and save two different versions to turn in. I hope that was helpful.